we're going to be looking at Tortilla Mexican Grill, one of my favorite shares in London. It's had a pretty rough time in terms of the share price. It's kind of more or less halved from 190 up to 100, although in recent times there has been a slight increase in the last month or so, from about 85 to 100. Nevertheless, it's incredibly cheap, 38 million. But why is that? We're having some people talking about other companies, but let's look at the income statement for the annual income statement. So in 2017, their revenue of 30 mil, they lost money. Then it went up to 33 mil, up 10% year on year. And then again, up roughly 10% to 2019. And then looks like they've skipped 2020, which is interesting. I guess that was COVID or whatever. Again, impacted slightly by COVID, down on the year. So most of these comparisons that Tortilla do actually compare to 2019. And then a massive jump to 48 million, from the 2019, from 35 to 48. That is nearly 50% increase in revenue. In terms of net income, it's also gone from negative roughly 1 million up to 1.36 million net, an increase of 180%. EBITDA of 7 million, which is interesting. It's kind of interesting that the net income was 1 point and then the EBITDA was 7. That's kind of interesting. I'm not quite sure how they got there, but nevertheless, I think from my perspective, a lot of the numbers are going up, which is good. Cash flow, there was a slight decrease in cash. I think last year they bought Chilango, which is a massive operator. I think they had 8 stores or something, one of the biggest Mexican chains in the UK. I think Tortilla are the largest at this point with over 80 stores in the UK. Not a huge amount compared to Chipotle in Europe or America, but nevertheless, the story looks pretty good. Net change in cash going up and up and up. Let's see what other websites are saying about Tortilla. Obviously, the share price is down, but we actually have it from Tortilla. I've got an update from just over about 2 weeks ago. Let's look at their update for the year ending the 1st of Jan. So this is the most recent update. So this is the best news to go by, if you like. Revenue growth was 16%. Revenue increased. Group revenue increased 20%. So like for like was 16. Group revenue up 20%. For the financial year, 2020, 26 million. Obviously, that was COVID year. 2021, 48, and that's up to 57 million. Like for like increase of nearly 17%. Fantastic. Growth increased by a lot, by a net increase of stores. 18 stores, so up to 82 now. I'll talk about that in a minute. I do think I've got some thoughts on that. I'll talk about it a little bit later. So the like-for-likes are pretty good. What about the strategic highlights? There's new sites. They're saying they have a disciplined rate, ambitious but disciplined. I'll talk about that a little bit later. There's a favorable rental market, probably because commercial rates are low. There's a lot of people going bust, etc. Most recently, they've opened in a place in London, in England, called Durham and Canterbury. These are kind of famous for cultural kind of places. A lot of visitors for Canterbury because of the Canterbury Tales, for example. Durham has a good university and I think cathedral and things like that. They bought Chilango, which is great. 5 of their sites, there was 8 stores, as I mentioned earlier on in this video. 5 are going to be rebranded to Tortilla, 3 under Chilango brands. I think because they're so close to Tortilla sites, they didn't want to cannibalize their own customers. So having 2 brands in a similar location means they can capitalize probably on incremental revenue. They've commenced a new franchise relationship. Talk about that a little bit later, with higher education as well as transport. They're going to be expanding their delivery operations with Delivery Kitchen Partners, Growth Kitchen and Karma Kitchen. That is kind of dark kitchens, I believe, which is really, really interesting. And they're partnering with Compass and SS Group at rail locations, rail and airports, etc. Strong cash position. They can self-fund their growth strategy. I'll talk about that as well a little bit later. So make sure to keep watching. Uncertainties, yet they're still growing very, very well. They have a proven model. This is from their CEO, Richard Morris. They've strengthened the brand outside of London. There's a bit of fear, I think, coming from Tortilla over the last few years that they couldn't, excel outside of London. They're smashing through those fears. They remain motivated and enthusiastic as ever through the organic opportunity. Adjusted EBITDA of 5 mil. Probably that's because of the acquisition of Chilango. So they have 82 sites, 4 franchise with SSP, that's the rail, 5 franchise, the Compass Group, and 8 franchised in the Middle East. I'm going to go back to some of the things that I was saying earlier on that I was going to comment on. So I think that I think they're expanding too slowly. I think they could really capitalize on the low commercial rates at the moment for, I imagine commercial landlords I'm sure there'll be favorable rates. I think they could probably capitalize maybe quicker on the franchise opportunity, not just franchising with companies, but looking at operators, individual operators that have money to operate. They could look at a franchise program, a bit like Catebox or Domino's Pizza have done to accelerate growth. I think that could be an opportunity. I think the higher education and retail, and in terms of rail and train and plane, I think that could be expanded. I don't see why Tortilla couldn't be at most of the rail stations in the UK, even the smaller ones. Maybe not local, but smaller. There probably could be 50 to 100 train stations, I would imagine. Certainly all the cities in the UK, of which I think there's between 50 and 100. I don't know for sure. But I think the opportunity is huge. Dark kitchens. I mean, I don't think there's a Tortilla in Hertfordshire, which is where I live. I would imagine that probably Hertfordshire alone probably has room for, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 maybe tortillas, if you think about the cities and the big towns in Hertfordshire, the rail stations, the universities. I think they've got room for at least 10, if not 30, somewhere between 10 and 30 stores in Hertfordshire alone. They can self-fund this. I think there's a few interesting points here. I think, I talk a lot about the difference between, startups and shares. And in the startup world, people go to market to raise capital from angel investors, from venture capital. I wonder what would happen if Tortilla wanted to go to market and raise 10 million from angel investors. I think they could. And imagine what 10 million would do if they wanted to expand. Let's just say they wanted to double down on their franchisees and franchisor program. And, they raise 10 million from angel investors, and, $1 million of that goes towards properly commercializing the franchise opportunity. I really would be surprised if they couldn't have 1,000 franchise stores in the UK, along with, probably 500 to 1,000 operator stores. They haven't even looked at the service station model. So they could easily have probably 300 or 400 tortillas in service stations as well. The dark kitchen model, I'm sure they could have 1,000 dark kitchens as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if overall the market size for Tortilla in the UK is somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 stores. They have 82 at the moment, at the time of recording this video. I think compared to Catebox, which has gone up about 50% in the last 3 to 6 months, I believe, still pretty cheap, at about, I think it's 100 pence. They're both valued they're both super cheap. Both companies are really ridiculously cheap at the moment. If it's a shame. I invested so much in these companies, in 2019, 2020, and 2021. I didn't really capitalize on the low prices of now. And sadly, I don't have as much investable funds right now. But nevertheless, I think there's a lot of value in Tortilla. I think I love the products myself. I was a customer before I was an investor. I started buying and eating tortilla food probably in 2017, something like that, maybe 2018. I don't remember. Like as soon as I saw them, I remember having great burritos in the United States when I was traveling there in 2010. And I'd kind of been wondering for about 10 years, like, why, not 10 years, whatever it was, 5 to 7 years, why are there no brands that have California style burritos in the UK? Tortilla pops up and they fucking nail it. Excuse my language, but they really do nail it. And I'm still surprised they only have 80 stores in the UK. I think there's a European opportunity as well. I think they have a 10,000 store global opportunity for Tortilla. I think they could be pressing on the gas a little bit faster. They have organic growth. They have a franchise opportunity which funds itself. They could go out to the market with angel investors to raise 10 million pretty easily, I would imagine. Maybe the first round might be 5 million, the second round 10, but I think they would raise a lot of money. Are they going to capitalize on any of these opportunities? Who knows? I think the operations team are fairly young, and they might not have the experience that other brands have or had. Domino's Pizza had an experienced board. Cake Box is bolstering their board. In fact, they're bringing on some people from Domino's Pizza. I wonder whether Tortilla could nab some people from Cake Box or from Domino's Pizza or from other big food chains. I think that would help. I know that Cake Box had some financial irregularities when it had a more inexperienced board. I wonder whether there's an opportunity there. I think for me, I would feel kind of a little bit better about the Tortilla brand if they stepped on the gas. Chipotle are expanding in London and the UK. Although I don't think they're going to take the whole of the market, I think if they wanted to, open 20 to 30 stores a year, the competitors, Chipotle, they could. And suddenly Tortilla have lost market share potentially. So I would like to see Tortilla, having opening 50 stores a year, as a blend of franchise, delivery, cloud kitchens, and owner-operated stores in the UK. I really don't see why they can't do that. I'd hope they could do that. I know that the company fears over expansion and things like that. Nevertheless, I would hope that maybe in a year or two they're launching 50 stores a year. Let's see what happens. I make videos all about stocks, shares, startups. Probably going to start doing some videos on some of the properties. I think property development will have its time. When I've kind of predicted a property crash, and I think that will happen. I think property will be something interesting to view. Guys, there'll be some other videos that are going to pop up soon you might want to watch. If you like this channel, make sure to like this video, leave a comment below, let me know your thoughts on the things I talk about. Subscribe, remember that knowledge is power, especially the right kind of knowledge. Progress is everything. I'll see you guys in one of these next videos. Take care. Cheers.